Welcome back. The NIRO Career Guidance and University Readiness Conference happening on the July 16th to 17th aims to empower learners with the necessary guidance and tools to navigate their future academic as well as their professional pathways, and to do it with confidence. Building on the success of last year's event, the conference will be focusing on Namibia's emerging markets and future jobs, offering valuable insight and addressing critical skills gaps to ensure learners make informed decisions about their career decisions. The conference concluded earlier today, and to speak to us in depth about what transpired over the last 2 days is NIRO Director, Mr. Clive Willemse. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. It's really great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm excited, actually. Yeah.
Just to start with, this is NIRO Education. I want to just do a little bit of a background,
Sure.
And you can talk to us about what the platform, the initiative, the establishment is about.
So NIRO, so we started actually with our main focus was to focus on studies abroad. So we've been a one-stop shop if you want to go and study abroad. Doesn't matter whether it's in Asia, in Europe, Canada. And so that's actually the main focus, but we soon get to realize, you know what, parents and students come to us, sometimes very little clue what they want to study, sometimes it's family pressure, sometimes, you know, but we realize the need for career guidance has been, it's a major need amongst our students. And so this is one of the critical things that we've been looking for. But that's sort of the core of the business. One of the exciting projects we, for instance, did was with NAMPOT. We did a project called Career Guidance on Wheels. Now, what we did there, we went to the Irongo region. We did psychometric assessment with all the grade 11s and grade 12s.
Wow.
And so the whole idea was to, number one, talent identification. We realized Irongo region is quite a industrialized region, but they lose a lot of skills. So you come to Windhoek, go to Cape Town, Johannesburg, and then you never return back. And so, but the ultimate idea was also how do you feed, because you have to focus and do some planning. And so become industrialized in the region. So we said, okay, out of, let's say 3,000 or 5,000 grade 11 and 12 students, 20% is in the science field, others in social science field.
Right.
So now you can focus in the long term. So that's actually the ultimate goal. So those are some of the projects that NIRO was actually engaged in, yeah.
Awesome. And then last year you had your inaugural conference, and of course the second one was on the backbone of that, success.
Yeah.
Speak to us about last year's success.
Last year was quite a great success. What we did, our focus last year was really to introduce learners mainly to different universities. So we've got a lot of international universities that came last year, but that was the particular focus. Just to, we had our local universities there, but a number of universities from Asia. There was, from Bangkok, Thailand, from the UK, we had a number of universities there, but also just to expose them to a bit of different, because what interesting is that, especially universities abroad, you do specialization quite early.
Yes.
You don't necessarily have to wait until you're postgrad with specialization. And the interesting thing is also they've got like dual programs. Like, for instance, you can do two years, let's say in Bangkok, Thailand, and then you can do in Barcelona, Spain, same program. But so those were the kind of options that we want to introduce. So that was sort of the primary focus for last year at the conference. Yeah.
Fantastic. And then what was different with the 2024 version of the conference?
Now this year, obviously with the emergence of focus within this country has completely shifted. Yeah. And so we realize we need to introduce our students to those kind of emerging markets that has been advocated for within the country. We have seen with the conversations of green hydrogen, the oil and gas industry has become very, very prominent. But the critical, if you ask most of the students now, what do they want to become? Top 3, doctor, lawyer, and accountant is still. And so that's sort of a bit of a challenge. So students still don't want to, I think the percentage is about 25 to 30% go into to the STEM, the science field.
Right.
So the most is still going to the commerce and the social science field. But unfortunately, this is not where the direction of the country is going. And so as a pastor, I use that scripture, Romans 12, we have to be transformed by the renewal of the mind. So this was actually sort of a renewal conference, actually. I didn't want it to sound pastor like today, but it's to shift the mindset, because the problem is we already sit with such a high level of unemployed graduates. So we need to look at the employability. So you finish your studies, what's the employability? And so unless our students now already refocus, I think that's sort of the challenge that we'll be focusing. So that was literally the focus of this year's conference.
On the point that you just made with that, critical skills gap that, we're currently experiencing in this country, how does the conference help learners then to make, informed career choices? Yeah.
So we were, I think exposure is quite important. Yeah. So we started, so one of the things about conferences like that is exposure. So we, unfortunately, because mindset is really set on certain degrees and so on, and so unless, you and I, sometimes we take it for granted because our exposure think that everyone is exposed, and so we come across that's not the case. So exposure to different fields. We had Mr. James, who is leading the Green Project, and we have Franz Kaulenga from NAMCOR is leading the oil and is Namibian, so we expose them, and we had Mr. Kiat from Green Enterprises from the ITC perspective talked about what's the different fields, in ITC and in particular, artificial intelligence. So the idea was to get the conversation started, to introduce them. So I asked them a question. Usually when we do this kind of conferences, we test them. Do you know what's a horticulturist? What do they specialize? And so I said, if you got this one right, you will win Super Away. And so they were all jumping. And so 4 of the students actually came up. And James was so smart at this particular time. We made them to stand. And so I asked the question to some of them, the 4 of them, if you can get a question right, what's the kind of fields of study that you need to study to get into the space of green hydrogen? Right. Yeah. And so you could just practically break it down. He had a ball of a time, by the way, James. And so it was just, and so we tried to really make it practical to some of the students. Study environmental studies. If you study law, look at specialization. Look at marine. Biology, and so we need to. So it was just to conscientize and bring awareness to them, because we've been brought up conservative, and so if you're not a doctor, you're going to be a failure. Take for us, especially, I don't want to even go into the arts fields. That's just crazy. Our parents just go crazy, and so we need to. That's quite a. And when it comes to NIRO, that's quite a big part that we have to do. We've seen it with parents. We have to do a lot of orientation, a lot of take them from here. Look at the brain profile of the child, and so we need to. You want him to be a doctor, but his brain profile is a right brainer. He's extremely creative. Right. So look at things in that particular. So there's still a lot of work to it's not that we don't have the potential as Namibians, but I think it's a question of communicating.
Yeah. What was the attendance like this year? Were you satisfied with it? And also, do you open the call or the conference to parents as well? Because it's one thing for students to come, and now I have to go home and convince mommy and daddy that I'm right-brained and creative. So doctor and lawyering won't actually work. So do you involve parents in the conversation as well?
I think you're actually spot on. So the numbers, so last year we were about 300, so this year we got close to 1,000 students. Fantastic. So it really tripled in terms of growth. But you've mentioned something important in terms of the parents. So we realized that, and just when you mentioned that, I realized even day 2 should have actually just been for parents, because those are the ones, number one, we are the ones giving the money.
Paying, exactly.
Yeah, and so our parents are also researching and everything and so on. But also, our parents sometimes could be very traditional. Yeah. And so imagine if my child, I'm a doctor, I'm staying in the rural area. I'm the chief of the village. If my child is like that, and the Labola money is going up because all this kind of things is happening. Yeah. So, and so we had actually parents that was gate crashing the thing.
That's a good thing.
That's a good. It was literally that's really a good thing. But actually, you just affirm the need for the parents, and I think as a team, we'll definitely have to reconsider that and trying to see how we can get, instead of just in a one-on-one, and also let the parents be informed, like, with those with the industry captains, where they can say, okay, this is the field, transform, give them this kind of books, you know, how do we steer? And sometimes us as parents, we also don't have the tools. We want them, we want to do, everybody's talking about these high things, but we as parents, even ourselves, don't have the tools. So we've seen it on a daily basis, yeah.
What are the key takeaways that you hope that this year's learners gained from attending the conference?
I think for me, one of the things is to have a transformed mind, to see the immense opportunities. We have to become aware the demographics have changed. You know, from one of the saddest things is you study for 7 years and then you're unemployed for 3 years. I think that's the challenge that we have currently. So it's not that the opportunity is not there anymore, but we have to change our mindsets, and so everybody have to come and play a role. So that's really, so we're hoping that eventually the exposure to Namibian stories, people who are leading, and what I find, listen to the two gentlemen was also speaking, they're Namibians and they are specialists within their field. We always thought it's from outside, but they are specialists in their field. So I really hope it will change their mind, open up the paradigm a bit, so when we have a bit of one-on-one consultations with them, that will just, cement what they've been exposed to.
Fantastic work you're doing with NIRO Education, Mr. Willemse. It was a pleasure having you here with us this evening.
Thank you so much, Nina.
We're going to take another brief break. When we come back, it's almost time to say goodnight, but not yet.